Hi, welcome to the context where we talk about generative AI.
Yeah, so last week we also introduced Amazon Novasonic, that is the new speech-to-speech model from the Nova family. It's a single unified model that merges speech understanding with voice generation. So this is the launch post, and what I like of this post is the description of how the protocol works. It's different than normal understanding models where you send text and you get text. In this case, you have two bidirectional. You have one bidirectional communication channel. So you have the two directions of the channel. On one direction, you send at the beginning the system prompt, the configuration that you want to use in terms, for example, of max tokens, temperature. Then you can send your audio in chunks. And then on the other channel, you start to get back the transcription of what you said, the voice chunks from the model, and also you can get tool use requests based on your configuration of tool use, and then you can handle this tool use request, for example, call a RAG system, external function, and send back on your input channel the result of the tools. So it's different than other ways, but it's quite interesting to use. And we shared quite a few sample codes for this. So in the Nova cookbook repo, there is now a speech-to-speech folder where there are two main groups of code samples. One is called repeatable patterns, and here we introduce some samples on things that we expect developers to do more than one time. So how to use Bedrock knowledge base, as I mentioned before, how to handle a chat history, how to resume a conversation that is stored as text and then you continue with voice, how to integrate with LangChain. And then we have a sample codes folder with full application for Python. The Python application are console only, and then with full web application with Java and Node.js. So what I did, I took the Node.js app, I cloned it, and I just changed the system prompt. So instead of being your friendly AI assistant, I set the model that you are Ada Lovelace, you're the first computer programmer, speak with a voice appropriate for the time you lived, and so on. And by just changing this, we got to something interesting. So let's see what happens. Hi, my name is Danilo.
Greetings, Danilo. I am Augusta Ada Lovelace, a name perhaps you have encountered in the annals of scientific and mathematical discourse. It is with great pleasure I engage in discourse with you today.
The pleasure is mine. Can we talk about the analytical engine?
Ah, the analytical engine, a marvel of mechanical ingenuity. It was conceived by the venerable Charles Babbage, and I had the privilege of delving into its workings with profound fascination.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you translate something about the analytical engine?
Indeed, I did. My notes on the analytical engine, translated from the original French of Luigi Menabrea, are a testament to my intellectual endeavors.
Sorry, it's late. I need to leave. Thank you for the chat, Ada.
So you're telling me
Danilo,
that after
may
all
our conversation
this time,
inspire you as much as it has delighted me. Should you wish to explore further, know that my thoughts are ever at your service.
you finally get the chance to speak to Ada Lovelace, and it's like, actually, I don't have time. I need to go.
Yeah.
That's the rush of modern life. Yeah.
It's really cool that you can interrupt it very naturally and it just goes back to the conversation as if you're talking to it.
Yeah, and actually the main reason to interrupt Ada to me was to show how we can handle quite easily interruption with Novasonic. It's one of the important features because this interruption or barge in, as I often called in these scenarios, are the way with which customers often interact with voice-generated applications. And if you don't handle them correctly, then the user experience is quite poor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So can you show us the code? Because I've got so many questions.
Yeah, so this is the code repo, and basically there's a file with some constants. So here is where you can find the default voice to use, the the default system prompt, no, you are a friend, and so on. Here, there's then the client and the server. So this is the server that it's creating the client connection. As you see, there is this new API that is called bidirectional stream client. And we expect basically application to have the application server have this bidirectional stream with the AWS API, and these are using HTTP streaming. And then on the user connecting to the application server is using all the different technology, normally WebSockets. So in this case, we establish a WebSocket from the client, from my computer to the application server, and then the application server is using this API, using HTTP streaming to the AWS endpoint.
So behind the scenes of this, so this is so what is it that we're connecting to?
It's an AWS API endpoint, the new one. It's maybe the first one to be fully bidirectional. I'm not 100% sure, but close to that. And so your SDK running in your application is creating this bidirectional communication using HTTP streaming with the AWS endpoint. And then you need to handle this bidirectional communication with the users connecting to your application, and that in this case is using WebSockets. If this was a mobile app running on a mobile, you don't need that. You just run on your mobile and then just connect to the AWS endpoint.
Okay, so my context, my experience is having used large language models, and so I'm used to the idea of I send my prompt and I get a response back, and my response might have things like tool usage and things like that inside of it. Is it very similar to that, except that I'm streaming audio each way as well?
Yes, and probably if you were already used to use streaming with a text model, it's not that different because it was monodirectional flow where you were getting these chunks in the stream from the model, and some of these chunks were part of the answer of the model, and some of these chunks could be requests to use a tool. And this is exactly the same, but now you also have the answer back that is working in a similar with a similar format.
Yeah, so this is way more than just doing speech to text and text to speech or anything like that. So this is doing all of that reasoning behind the scenes as well. So it's really it's a one-stop shop for doing all of this stuff. And I guess if you want to extend that, then you do that through tool use.
Exactly. It's a unified model. I don't need to connect multiple models together to do transcription, generate audio, reason, or tool use. It's just a single model. And then with tool use, you can add RAG, you can add connection to external systems, and so on.
Yeah.
MCP, obviously, is what we have to do. So we have to connect it to MCP so that we can connect it to anything.
And it's still the same syntax for tool use of the normal Bedrock Converse API. It's just inside this different API. So any MCP server that can work with Bedrock can be rewired to work with this API very, very easily.
Or the other way around. You can just add a client to this that can connect to any MCP server.
Of course.
Yeah. One thing that's really interesting about Sonic is that because it's bidirectional, you don't send the stream, the voice stream, and then it responds, and the channel towards the model is closed. The channel actually stays open, so you can even interrupt the model.
So it'll be very interesting actually to do some tests around that and see whether if it's in the middle of doing quite a long response, because you do see the text, right, as it's speaking it as well.
Yeah.
So if you interrupt it and then start to say something, presumably the context or the conversational history is actually filled with what it was going to say, even though it didn't actually end up saying it.
The model internally, the model first produces what it wants to say, what it's going to say, and then it's actually saying it. So that what you just said, what it wants to say is there, but the actual audio output can be interrupted.
Yes, yeah.
But it still contributes to the history of the dialogue, even though it hasn't been said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. That's how you can handle interruption on your client-side implementation. It depends on what you're doing. And just to connect to what I think it was Mike saying about the short or long interaction that you have. There's some interesting tips in the Nova user guide that give you an idea of what kind of prompts you should use with these speech-to-speech models. If you need this kind of information, they are in the Nova user guide.
Very cool. So probably not too far away then until we end up with Ada Lovelace as a guest on this show who can just sit there in the background talking to all of us.
That'll be so cool.
Okay, I think that wraps us up for this week's episode of The Context. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do have anything that you'd like us to talk about in future episodes, then please do feel free to get in touch. But until then, from me and everybody else who's here, see you next week.
See you.
See you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.